Welcome to the Lewis R2 caliper bleeding video using a Shimano 8170 lever as the example. You will need alcohol and a cloth for cleaning, a 2.5 and 2 mm Allen key, an elastic band, suitable brake fluid, a bleeding funnel, and 2 bleeding syringes. For the syringes, ensure to use the dedicated R2 adapter provided. For the bleeding funnel, fit the appropriate adapter for the lever you are currently using. First, fill both syringes to the tip with mineral oil before sealing them off. Next, we will prepare the caliper. Start by removing the brake pad pin and clip. Remove the brake pads carefully and apply suitable bleeding blocks. Next, using a 2 mm Allen key, remove the primary and secondary bleed port screws before connecting the 2 syringes. Carefully screw the syringes in by hand, noting that the threads are at an angle, as shown in the following picture. Ensure they are securely connected before proceeding. Next, remove the bleed port screw on the lever and carefully attach the oil funnel. Note, the lever should be at an angle as shown in the following diagram. Next, to begin the bleeding process, unseal both syringes and apply even pressure on both syringes to fill the caliper with oil. You should now see some oil along with a few air bubbles entering the bleeding funnel. We recommend at this time to add some extra oil to the bleeding funnel to improve the overall process. We can now repeat the process of pushing and drawing oil through the system on each syringe until no air bubbles are observed. Please note the following process should be done gently to ensure the protection of the brake. First, seal off the secondary syringe before using an elastic band to hold the lever in the closed position. Next, gently and smoothly pull back on the primary syringe. You should not see oil, but you should see air bubbles exiting the system. We can then release the lever, and we should see a flow of oil from the funnel to the syringe, along with any last air bubbles leaving the system. We can now keep the lever in the released position and push the oil back into the funnel before allowing the elastic band to close the lever and then once again repeating the process. Note, this process should be repeated with both syringes. Once finished, remove the elastic band, and finally push and pull the oil through the system one last time and ensure there are no air bubbles visible. It is important to end the process with a push on the syringe as the final bleeding action. Next, we can plug the oil funnel before carefully removing the bleeding syringes and replacing the bleed port screws. Note, the torque setting on these screws is 2.5 Newton meters. We can now test the lever feel. Note, if there is more lever travel than normal, this is to be expected. Next, give the caliper a good clean and wipe down with alcohol before removing the bleeding blocks and carefully replacing the brake pads, remembering the brake pad pin and clip. The brake pad pin has a torque setting of 1.5 Newton meters. We can now replace the rotor and give the lever a test, and it should feel perfect. The final step is to remove the oil funnel, replace the bleed port screw before giving the lever a clean and wipe down with alcohol. Thank you for watching. As always, if you have any questions, please reach out to your local Lewis dealer, distributor, service center, or Lewis Direct.